In these videos, we have just spoken about why we need to improve the transparency, reproducibility, and quality of our research. And we have described 4 tools to do just that. Let's now bring it all together and show how the tools fit into the research process. It can be helpful to think about the research process as a circle. We start with an idea, we generate a research question, and depending on study type, some hypotheses. We then design our study before we collect our data and then analyze it. We interpret findings and then write them up for publication. We then go back to the drawing board and start again with a research question with ideas and hypotheses. At various stages of the research process, we might go wrong, both intentionally and unintentionally. For example, we might design a study poorly. Maybe we just forget to collect some important covariates. It's also very easy to make mistakes when it comes to collecting the data, as simply as forgetting to turn on a recording device. When it comes to analyzing data, it's quite easy to make mistakes, such as overwriting your own data in your script. Sometimes we might be tempted to play around with the data and try different types of analysis until we found very nice, significant effects. When it comes to publishing findings, we often omit important details in the description of our studies. And finally, we might not even be tempted to publish our findings if we have null results. Often we don't make our data and code available, which means others cannot scrutinize our work.
The tools we've discussed can be used at different phases of the research process and can help overcome many of these limitations. Pre-analysis plans should be done early on, ideally at the study design phase, or at the very latest before you start doing your analysis. Thinking through your analysis early on can help you design a better study in the first place and make sure that you're collecting all of the data that you'll need. To give just a brief example, when I was writing out my pre-analysis plan for a study that I'm doing about future energy tariffs, I realised that the way I phrased a question meant that I would know whether a respondent has ever switched their energy tariff, but I'd have no idea how long ago they switched. Thinking through this beforehand meant that I could write a better question and make sure that I had all of the data I needed when I came to do my analysis later on. When we write our pre-analysis plans, we also specify the aims of the study and, when appropriate, whatever hypotheses we might be testing. This limits the amount of manipulation that can be done later on, such as hypothesizing after the results are known, or p-hacking, as mentioned in the first video. Reporting guidelines are typically used when you're writing up the study to give you structure and ensure that you're including sufficient details. But it can also be useful to familiarize yourself with the reporting guidelines that you're going to be using before you go and do the study. For example, some reporting guidelines require that you take note of the number of participants at key stages of the study. For example, how many people you contacted, how many dropped out, and how many actually completed the study. Being aware that you're going to need to write this up can help you make sure that you're keeping track of all the information that you'll need. Preprints are usually shared around the time that you submit your article to a journal, but it can be useful to share them sooner, for example, as a working paper. They play a really important role in mitigating publication bias and also getting your findings out there into the world sooner so that they can be used by other scientists. As always, it's really important to check that the journal you're submitting to allows for preprints before you share them. Sharing data and code is usually done at the end of the study, but it can sometimes be useful to share them sooner. It's really worthwhile building data and code sharing into your workflow right from the beginning to benefit from better data and code management and also increased efficiency. Thinking about the kind of metadata that you'll have to include and also the requirements of your chosen repository can really help improve the efficiency of this process. By sharing our data and code, we're letting other scientists benefit from the valuable resources we produce and also allowing our findings to be scrutinized and built upon.
We've developed a checklist called the TReQ list that you can use to show how you've employed tools for transparency in your own work, for example, by including it as an appendix in your papers. For each of the 4 tools, there are a couple of questions to answer, and you're asked to insert links as appropriate. It starts with pre-registration, asking whether you've pre-registered the study. If so, there are some other questions to answer, such as whether you did this before data collection, and if any deviations from the pre-registration are noted in the manuscript. The second tool is using reporting guidelines, and you're asked to indicate which one, if any, you've used. The next section is around open data and code, whether you've shared your data and code, and, if the data is shared, you're asked to indicate whether metadata has been uploaded, and whether the data follow the FAIR principles. Finally, you're asked whether you've published a preprint and, if so, where. So the TReQ list has got 2 main purposes in our view. The first is to help you as a researcher ensure that you've used and reported on these tools for improving research practices. And the second is so that others can easily see which tools you've used with links to the relevant details. So hopefully this shows how everything hangs together. Now, one important thing to emphasize is that throughout these videos, we've put a lot of emphasis on what individuals can do in their role to improve research practices. But of course, there are many other actors in the field of academia that might have contributed to the development and maintenance of an academic world which favours novel and impressive findings over considerations around transparency, reproducibility and quality. We've all heard the saying publish or perish, with journals preferring exciting new findings and funders and universities wanting to see outstanding publication records. We need to see a more holistic change in our research culture, with all of these actors having an important role to play, whether that's by requiring data sharing or more highly valuing replication studies. Otherwise, there's a risk that this move towards more transparent, open, reproducible science becomes purely tokenistic. Thanks so much for watching these videos. We've tried to convey how important transparency, reproducibility and quality are, both to us as researchers and to science in general. And we hope that we've given you the tools you need to employ these TReQ approaches in your own work.